Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Amazy, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode. Brothers, let's talk a little bit about limiting beliefs and relapses. Every one of us has limiting beliefs or a limiting belief that is attached to our slips or our relapses. And it's based on a story that we're telling ourselves. It's different for different guys. I was abused as a child. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I abused somebody as a result of my out-of-control behavior. The secrets. I watch some sort of pornography that fills me with shame. And every day or every other day I think about it, and it holds me back. I'm not worthy of being loved. Whatever the story is that you are telling yourself, brother, it's holding you back from every other thing in life. Usually multiple areas of internal and external reboot capital. Maybe you want deep intimacy in a relationship and you're already there, but you can't create it because you don't feel you're worthy of being loved. Because of that story you're telling yourself. Maybe you're doing well financially, but you'd like to do more. You dream of doing more, but you can't. You want to help others. You want to contribute to the world, to your church, to a charity. There's something you want to do, but you just can't. You don't know how to set yourself up financially to do that, or you can't seem to find the time, or you always sabotage yourself. Maybe you're seeking intimacy. You're not in a relationship, but you want to be in one. Maybe you have a health issue. Maybe you're overweight. Maybe you want to look a certain way. Maybe due to the way you live, you're now facing persistent health issues of some sort. But you just can't seem to find the motivation to just deal with it and do what's necessary. Every time you relapse, you reinforce that when you do not use this system. And what I mean is, when you do not train yourself to look at this as data. When you just go with your emotions, oh, I relapsed, therefore, and you just go into autopilot, therefore I am, and you will notice that everything that comes up is a reinforcement of your past self-image. And all of that keeps you stuck. Doesn't matter whether you're your 30s, your 40s, your late 20s, your late teens, it doesn't matter. You will just stay stuck in that same place. There are men who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that in some areas of their reboot capital, internal reboot capital, they still feel the same as when they were 17 and when they were 16. Even with their finances, even with their relationships. We have men still acting like they're 16 when it comes to women. Emotionally, they just haven't grown. It's not because you didn't have opportunities. You did. Just interacting with other adults in life, via work, with your friends, just learning from the internet, from books. That, don't you think, should have helped you mature a little bit in some areas of your reboot capital? Well, why hasn't it? It hasn't because of your out-of-control behavior. Because you spend days or hours, or who knows, maybe even moments to moments, telling yourself that story when you relapse because of the strong emotions you have. This is one of the reasons why, in traditional recovery, we're just looking at this as purely data. It's not really encouraged. And what I mean is that if you were to slip or relapse, it's viewed as a failure. They may call it a failure logically, but if you're counting days, and if it's one day at a time, And if you have to start all over again, and if a relapse is that huge a deal, then there is some form of negative emotion attached to it. And the danger is that that negative emotion is attached to the limiting belief. What I want to tell you is this, is what the reality is that if you are watching this video, then you are resilient. I don't think you understand. Let me tell you from my perspective as an addiction professional. Many people do not touch sexually compulsive behaviors or out of control behaviors that have to do with pornography. Why? Because there is not much money in it. Because unlike other addictions, their ideal clients, just telling you the game, their ideal clients will not approach because of shame. So all these people who make money from addiction recovery, they try not to touch sexual addiction. They're like, nah, it's just too much work. The alcoholics and the people who struggle with meth and cocaine, it's visible, it's easy to make money from this. I'm a man who lived with this behavior. I know how devastating it is. But the reason that I did this, the reason I gave up my career to come and take this career, this is more than a career, this mission, is because I realized one thing. I realized that we are powerful when we overcome this. By overcome this, I mean overcome it moment by moment. As a person who has struggled with this, to find this video, to watch this 7 minutes in, it means that you are a resourceful person. It means that you are a person who is capable of looking for solutions. And many of you watching this have already made amazing progress. You just haven't had anybody tell you how amazing the thing you have accomplished is. All addicts that are in the process of overcoming their behavior are extraordinary. I've had some people say like, oh man, you're this and you're disciplined and all these things. All of these things come from the process of overcoming that out of control behavior. All of this, your morning routines, the books you read, the self-awareness, learning how to be accountable, accountability partners. That's networking, guys. It's finding the right people, learning how to be vulnerable. I didn't know that as I went through my reboot, that I was learning how to connect with people deeply. And then in business, I was just doing it because I was so used to being accountable. Some of you already experienced that. You're just like, well, yeah, with my accountability partners, I'm so open. And then next thing I know, guys are talking to me about all sorts of things in their lives. It's the skills you gain from this rebooting lifestyle. You must understand this. The people who are still living with their addiction, they're still living with it. The men who are rebooting are the ones who are powerful. And you must remember this. So many of you are not willing to work on other areas of your reboot capital because you're so busy focused on shaking off this, I just want to put porn addiction behind me and move on with my life. Yes, you can do that, but you cannot completely ignore it. You've lived with it so long, so many years. Why don't you take the lessons you've learned from it? Why don't you take the rebooting process and apply it to your life? That is what I did. It is those skills, it is the things I was learning during rebooting that got me my relationship, that got me to where I am financially, that got me to where I am with my physique. I took what life gave me as my greatest struggle, and I took that and I molded it into something. And the crazy thing is I will see former alcoholics do this. I will see people who were on drugs do this and become massively successful. I will not see men who struggled with sex and porn addiction do this because of the shame. Well, when will I be rebooted and moved on? When will I this? You look at successful individuals who overcame a drug, alcohol addiction, right? Substances, chemical dependency. They're so proud to talk about it. You see them, they're like, yeah, I overcame a 20-year drug addiction. I'm proud of it. They used it to overcome their limiting beliefs and change their mindsets. But when it comes to sex and porn addiction, y'all don't want to talk about it. Guys will experience some wins, get to the middle reboot or late reboot. They're about to leave the program. They're like, nah, I don't want to leave a testimonial. The program has been good for me. And it doesn't really matter to me. We'll always have brothers who will leave testimonials. The program has been good to me, but I don't want to put my face out there. And while this doesn't mean that you haven't rebooted, you have rebooted. It just means that you've controlled this behavior, but you are probably not going to take the things that you have learned from this to move forward. Some of you use accountability, and you're just like, yeah, accountability just for this group. It's just a transactional thing for you. And once I'm done, I'm going to move on with my life. You don't even learn the skill of accountability, which you will find is necessary in business. I have multiple people who work with me and for me. And without accountability, we wouldn't get shit done. Nothing would get done. This video wouldn't even be put out in time. When it comes to a morning routine, there's no way I would be in the mood that I'm in most days. I learned how to control my emotional states, but that is by necessity because I didn't want to slip or relapse. I wouldn't have been able to come back to spirituality. I left religion because it was too dogmatic. But in the process, I also let go of spirituality. It was only true rebooting. And you guys who have been in the program for a while know that in this process, when you get later on to the later maintenance stage of your reboot, you will confront your mortality. You will ask yourself the question, you will realize that beyond the coping strategies and skills, you need more. But rebooting brought me back to God. I'm not saying this in a religious way. My Christian brothers, my Muslim brothers, oh, it brought him back, he was saved. No, it brought me back to the universe, to God, to this thing within me. It brings you back to everything, brothers. My point is, you are powerful. Do not shy away from the work you're doing. Embrace it. Do the reboot work. Remember, you are more powerful than others. Some of you will put in years in your reboots only to go on YouTube or look for some motivational speaker to give you permission to do things. You look at somebody else's story and you be like, oh, well, that guy was a drug addict. That guy was this and he overcame it. I'm going to buy his book and his course. You are a porn addict. You have your own story. You don't need to look to them for anything. I didn't look to anybody. I just looked at my own struggle and I used my own struggle to do this, to create the life I wanted to create. You must step past the shame, guys. It is the reality of your life. So many of you want to run away from this. You want to end your behavior and move on, and it's fine. Doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. It doesn't mean you're not going to get things out of your life. It doesn't mean you're not going to be happy. But if the depth of pain and struggle you experienced the most was with your porn addiction, that's always where the lessons you learned in it, the systems you picked up from overcoming it, that is always where you're going to have the most energy. It's always where you're going to be most activated and motivated. It's always where you're going to be living. It's always where things are going to be very challenging. This is simple, the rebooting process. But as you guys know, it is not easy. And that's a good thing. That means that as you come out from the process, as you go through it, you're forged in something. You're forged in the struggle. You're forged by the slips and relapses. You're forged by having to confront that addict subpersonality, that voice in your head over and over and over again. You're forged because you are battling an enemy. I don't use the word battle often, but y'all know what I mean. It's not a part of the system, but I'm using it for the sake of this video. You're battling an enemy over and over again. Sometimes you're battling this enemy from morning till night. Drugs, alcohol, they're not required in life. People can live without them. And there's not much of a negative consequence in a person's life, probably none. But sex, you need sex to procreate, at least, to be intimate with your partner. So it's different. The struggle is different with this. And thus the battle is different. With porn, with sex addiction, the chemicals are in here. They're not external. It's your own endogenous opiates that you are addicted to. This makes you infinitely more powerful than anybody who says that they overcame an alcohol and drug addiction. That's fine, bro, but what if I make the drug lab, the meth lab is in my fucking head? What if it's in my head? You guys are badasses. I just had to tell you that, okay? Like, I know I go off sometimes. I love you guys. Remember, you have all the resources, all right? You're an amazing individual. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. I gotta get my ass to work. I'll talk to you guys later on in the week. Bye. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out of control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.